80% or 70% of the students who study statistics don't know how to use SPSS, don't know how to use our software, don't know how to analyze data using MATLAB. This is the kind of education system I'm talking about.
Your mind is being shaped.
I want to welcome you all for today's podcast. Today we are discussing Africa's education produces certificates, not competitors. And then we'll discuss how to become globally relevant. Now, this topic is quite an interesting topic because we want to see how the education system was designed by standards, the root of it, and then what it is doing right now, and how we can be able to understand if it's actually working well for us or it's not working well for us, if it is doing us more good than harm or it is not. And why is it that most people who actually go through the African education are not globally competitive with other people around the world? This is a very heavy discussion we want to have, and it's very interesting because it's a lingering issue that I believe there are a lot of people that are actually sleeping on, which needs to be discussed. My co-host Emmanuel, what do you think about this very topic from your perspective?
So, Michael, like you mentioned, this kind of conversation is very intriguing. I believe that real education should do more than producing people to write exams, but it should be able to raise curiosity and not crushing it in people. I'm saying this because if you are from Africa, you would understand that the education system in Africa is not actually raising people to actually face life, but it raises people to write exams, sit exams. But I'm believing that as people, any form of education we receive should be able to help us to know more about our lives, our world, and our place in the world. But that is not what is going on. And most of these things are coming from so many sources, which, of course, at the end of this episode, will expose our people onto all these things. But trust me, I believe that this conversation is there's going to be an interesting one. And we hope our people will stick together and then they'll watch us as we roll more of this for them.
That's interesting. You know, as we discussed this topic, a whole lot of things are running through my mind. I'm imagining how many of us go to school with a lot of dream, a lot of ambitions to become what we want to become. And then at the end of the day, we end up diverting our careers. And I know it's not happening in only one African country. It cuts across all African countries. You have a young man growing up and their dream is to become maybe a pilot or they want to become an engineer. And then one way or the other, on their way in education, something just changes. It just changes, and then their whole dream, their whole vision diverts into something else. And I can boldly say that the majority of people have faced this back to back. You may have outliers. You may have a few people who actually are able to go through it, and then they are able to achieve the dream they want to achieve with education. But the majority of people have a shift. They have a shift in their lives when they are going through the education system in Africa, which is alarming. Do you think that this is happening because people are not having the right mindset, or it is happening by system?
I want to say that it is happening by system. The system is put in place in a way that it will affect their mindset, so that at the end of the day, these people would become a bit confused, frustrated, or even not knowing where they are going. And I would like to trace all these things. We got to where we are because of previous stories, previous history. I would always say that the story of, or the history of African education has not been a simple story of one system replacing another. It has actually been a layered story from pre-colonial time, colonial time, and even the post-colonial. So it has gone through different eras. It is actually a system that has been put in place, and that has actually manipulated, worked on our mind to the point that once a child goes to school, once a child enters the education system, they will just be following that routine. They will just be following that norm. They will just be following that system. And that has produced the kind of people we have in our continent right now. So I believe that it's actually a system that has affected our mindset in a way that we are not even aware, because it's a structured thing.
That's an interesting one to know, because I also side with you that it's actually a system thing. Actually, I believe it's a system thing. And if you look at every individual who has actually come out or has been able to achieve something huge with education, as I said before, they've had a touch of an outside education, which I know a majority of people who have had that experience. Then you come down to those who have not had a touch of the outside education. You realize that every one of us end up thinking in a certain direction.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if two people, one gets a touch of education from Europe or maybe in America or anywhere in the world, and you have another person who have not had a touch of it but from Africa, you realize that their thinking pattern to solve problems are different. Their thinking pattern to solve problems are different. And there is a wide gap. And as a matter of fact, it's by design of the system. So if we are going to talk about this, someone will ask, what do we mean by design of the system? You know, if we say by design of the system, I've said it and I'll continue to say it. Education in Africa was not designed to increase the intelligence of the African.
Yeah.
It was never the case. Education in Africa was never designed to ensure that Africans become innovative. That was never the case. Education was created in order for the colonial masters to produce clerks, to produce interpreters who will be able to interpret their language to the locals, to be able to trade with them and to be able to control with their language. So the whole idea of education was never ever to expand the knowledge. I also give an example of the letter from King Leopold of Belgium, who wrote letters to colonizers, to evangelists, telling them that they should make sure that they don't teach Africans to understand or to be enlightened, to be innovative. These were things that were stipulated in his letters. So my question I ask myself every time is that if these things are evidential knowledge that we have, then why is it that we keep running the same education system in Africa, which is something I still don't understand? Because you have an education system where we put students in school, he learns things that are not relevant to his growth.
So Michael,
Things
like, okay, from what you were saying, is it that when the Europeans invaded the continent, is it that they didn't have any form of education as in pre-colonial era, or even before those people entered? Were we having any form of education that they came to disrupt? Because from what you are saying, I can understand that they actually designed that to disrupt our system, our education system. So were we having any form of education before these people came in, so that we can actually link it to what is happening right now?
Let me tackle it this way.
Okay.
You know, before the arrival of the colonial master, education in itself, as in formal education, let me use that word. Formal education was not something of recognition amongst the indigenous people.
Okay.
However, the indigenous people had informal education.
Okay.
Culture. We have culture practices that even taught females about puberty.
Yeah.
We had cultural practices that taught females how to cook healthy meals.
Yeah.
We had cultural practices that taught the youth how to be cultured.
Yeah.
That taught the youth how to live their lives.
Okay.
I'm just saying this because it was not formalized, but we had these things that were there. There were things that were being practiced by the indigenous people. They knew it.
I just remember. Do you know that even in those days, we had story where our fathers had apprentices. If your father is a hunter, he will just pull you along, and then he'll be teaching you how to hunt. If your father builds with mud and everything, he will just be pulling you along and will be teaching you. And we also had storytelling. Like, as you mentioned all these things, it was informal though.
They were
It wasn't
there.
formal.
They were
It was
informal.
informal.
All these things existed. They were just
Wow.
informal. They were without structure. They were without formal structures. That is why Egypt could build pyramids even when there were no technologies.
Yes.
That is why our forefathers were able to build forts. You know, there is a long history of the people of Benin in Nigeria. They were artmen, craftsmen. They were people, the whole of Africa, if you needed people who could craft, it was the people of Benin in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, they started this thing called sculpture. At that time, we didn't have camera. We didn't have videos. Do you know that they could use clay to mold you exactly and paint you with gold, and it would be there? Yes.
My goodness.
Go and refer to history. Africa, we had a lot of things going on. It was just not documented. We had these things. So this issue of sculpture started from the people of Benin. They started it. The Benin people of Nigeria, they started it. So Africa had education, but it was not formalized. We had it. We had photographers. That's why I gave you example. This one is not photographers. These are sculptures.
Yes, yeah.
They did it with experience. And as we talk now, do you know that all these sculptures I'm talking about has been looted? And some of them are being displayed in the museums of some countries.
Some countries we don't want to mention, I know.
Yeah, I don't want to mention names. All these sculptures, all these things, all the artifacts that Africa produced before the colonial master came, all those things has been taken away. And they are being displayed in some museums of some countries. And they are making money off it to build their countries, and Africa is still draining.
So what got lost?
So
link it to what you were trying to say. What happened if Africa was so powerful in a informal way of doing our own things, like educating people, which of course some of us, we are witnesses, and we know that even though they were not having a formal education, but we saw them doing that. What got lost? What was the thing that brought or that suppressed this whole thing when they came in? Or what structures, how was the structures laid down so that it's distracted the whole thing that they had?
It's power. I'll just use one word, power. You see, when you go to a strong man's house, you can never take anything from a strong man's house unless he's bound, unless he's tied up.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah, unless he's tied up or he's bound. If I'm going that way, the other thing I'll say is this. Apart from power, the other thing is injecting knowledge of inferiority complex. Do you know that as we speak now, when you pick a child who speaks very fluent Yoruba, automatically we are going to assume that the one who speaks Yoruba is less intelligent compared to the one who speaks English.
That's
So,
very true. That's true.
Yeah, so that's mind play. That's serious mind play. So I think that for our education system, it was fully designed in a way that would limit us. It will limit us as to the things that we can be able to do and the things we can be able to explore. Because tell me why we didn't have anything like BSc engineering, but then Africa was able to build world-class, civilized, fortified camps.
Yeah.
You know, I told you about the people of Benin. They had one of the most powerful, even the wall of Jericho. At a point, I was even thinking the wall of Jericho was the Benin people. My brother, they were so skilled that even the colonial masters suffered before they were able to break their walls to go and dominate them. I'm telling you. So we didn't have anything like BSc engineering, but they had skill in building. They had skill in building castles. They had skill in building fortified camps. I believe that formal education just came to formalize the things that Africans already knew.
Yeah.
It just came in to formalize the things Africans already knew.
Yeah.
That is what I would say.
Wow, that's very fascinating. Wow. So you were talking about education for subordination. The colonial masters came and their intention wasn't to develop Africa or to make Africa innovators, but their goal was just to be able to serve these colonial powers. So can we mention the things that they put in place? So I'm asking this question because when we are able to come out with some of these things, we'll be able to talk on some of the things that we can do to help our people to change the narrative, to grow, and to stand as people of their own so that they can compete with the global world. What are some of the structures that they put in place?
Listen, you can't compete the global world by shushing the student. You see, you can't compete the global world by corporal punishment, punishing the student.
Well, Africa is known for this.
Yes, you can't compete the global world. No, you can't. This came from the time of colonization, where people were studying under their colonial masters. Anytime they made mistakes, they were being punished.
Yeah.
They were being disciplined. They were being disciplined for not getting what they were being taught. They were being disciplined.
Yeah.
So if these were things that were going on, they were being punished for it, and that is what we have carried into our education system. Initially, I used to be a strong believer that no, we don't have to take punishment after school. We discipline students. But as I grew and advanced in knowledge and reading, I realized that the more you punish someone for wrongdoing, the more you actually veer them away from even doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they don't even get the enthusiasm to actually try the second time. They don't. So you and I have been in classrooms where they've asked a question, you know the answer, but you cannot raise your hands because you are scared. That is the kind of education we are running in our countries. As a matter of fact, we are running an education system where students are being asked to label the part of a grasshopper.
Part of a
butterfly. These are things that are still in our curriculum, and people are still learning them. You see what I'm saying? So our education system were designed to make sure that we are not thinking outside the box. Anyone who tries to think outside the box is labeled as overknowing. You are too knowing. That's how we label them. You are too knowing. You are too proud. I remember even back in schools, students who challenge teachers' answers are being punished. They would walk you out of the room. How dare you challenge your elder? How dare you challenge your master? These were things that were happening in the colonial days. And this is happening in our classrooms today. And the essence of education is challenge. The essence of education is to open your mind and challenge the things that you don't understand. It is not to feed your head with the things that are already there. It is to challenge the things that are there to see if it is relevant for today's world. That is what brings about innovation. So the reason why Africa doesn't have innovation is because we are not challenged enough to tackle problems.
Michael, in your book, one of your recent book, African Curse, you wrote something. I remember the last time I read, you wrote something that the education system in Africa promotes obedience and it punishes creativity. You even made mention of growth versus reason, which means that Africa or the education system in Africa is made for people to memorize. Then it's devoid. It's prevent them from making critical thinking, which of course it's in line with what you are saying right now. What were you trying to communicate? What were you trying to say by talking about this rote versus reason? And then the fact that the educational system promotes people who are obedient, but they are not creative.
You see, in our education system, people who are seen or who are getting the higher marks in class, who are seen getting the higher grades in class, naturally are people who have gone to actually produce exactly what is written in the textbook. They produce exactly what is written in the textbook.
It's true.
They produce it back to the lecturers, and lecturers read it. Yeah. He has written what I said.
He has written what I said. Exactly.
Yes. There are lecturers who mark according to your retentive memory. How many things were you able to retain when one was lecturing?
It's true.
So if I say rogue learning and then reasoning, these are the two things I'm talking about. Now, if we continue to do this, where in our local place we call it chew and pour. You chew what is in the book and you pour it out as it is. Garbage in, garbage out. That's what we do. That is why you have a lot of graduates coming out of school and they don't even know how to use simple tools. They don't know how to use simple systems. They don't know how to use simple softwares. And it is alarming. It is very alarming. Let me use example, say statistics. And 80% or 70% of the students who study statistics don't know how to use SPSS, don't know how to use our software, don't know how to analyze data using MATLAB. This is the kind of education system I'm talking about.
This is very sad. Wow.
This is the kind of education system I'm talking about. You have an education system. You have an education system where students go to study. They go to study, and then see, the blame is not the students. The blame is not for the students. The blame is for the system. I am getting fired up right now because
I know. I can really feel
remember.
Like
I want to use a practical example. It's about me, and sorry I'm bringing myself in, but I remember back on campus we were learning how to use a software, and they were literally writing on board. Yes, wow. They were literally writing on board.
How do we compete with the world with these things? Your words are very emotional.
How do we compete?
That's crazy. Wow.
So I'm saying these things for the youth that will come across this video to understand that the education system is not doing you any good. It's giving you some knowledge and understanding, which is good. That's a foundation. It's a very good foundation for you to have. But that alone will not put you on a global scale. It will not globalize you. It will not. See, I have list of people who come into my DM and they don't know what to do with their lives.
But they are
after school. I'm not talking about people who have not had education. These are people who have completed one of the higher level of educations we have, degrees.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do next. They have to come and talk to me and understand what they can do next.
Wow.
And you tell me that our education system is not having a problem. It's destroying a lot of minds. See, how can a young man in his teens enter into a classroom and then you ask a young man what he remembers from maybe what you taught last week or last 2 weeks, and maybe he doesn't remember. The next thing you can think about is to punish him. The next thing you can think about is to flog him.
I never thought of this way. Yeah.
These are things that implant inferiority complex into students.
That's very exact. That's true. You're right.
I remember another situation where a student who was not good at mathematics. He was not good at mathematics, and this mathematics teacher was found of always disciplining people who get below a certain grade. And this student who was not good at mathematics was able to at least say the pass mark for the teacher is about 60, let's say 60%. And this student who is not good has never been good. Now he got 59%. The best thing to have done for this student is to congratulate the student.
That's right. Yeah.
The best thing to have done for this student is to make him feel that his effort has paid off.
Yes.
This teacher beat the hell out of the student. It's happening everywhere. So you see where it is coming from. Why we are not creative. We are not motivated enough to think. Anyone who has come out of African education system and is thinking and is doing something big today is because they self-educated.
I know, before you say that, right now I'm just getting emotional as your points are very alarming. And you are right. You see, if you are in Africa and you are following this kind of conversation, you would really know that it is true. And that is what is going on. But how do we go about this? Are we focusing on talking to the youth or talking to the system, talking to the government? There is an agency in AU, African Union, called African Peer Review Mechanization. African Peer Review Mechanization. I wrote their name down here. And what they did was that they came out with the results, which says that Seychelles is one of the most, maybe should I say the best countries in Africa that has a good education system. And do you know why I'm asking this? One of their structures was that they have adapted a career path for the children or for young ones. So as the child is growing, they don't combine all of them in one class. So as they are growing up, they will just be selecting, identify their strengths, their weaknesses, their skills. So if there is a child who is interested in drawing, in IT, in any other thing apart from the books, like any technical stuff, they will just separate the child. They don't promote all of them together. And which personally, I feel that it's a great lesson that government and systems should start using those things. Now, how do we help ourselves out?
If we are talking about the government know what they have to do. They know. They just don't want to do it. They know the education system is rotten. They know that the education system needs overhauling. They know that they need think tanks to go and think about how to make the education system more robust and more modernized. But it's only in Africa where if you say that you are gathering youth to come and think about how to make the systems better, you'll be having a 50-year, 60-year-old man sitting on board redesigning education systems.
That's the reason I'm laughing, because I know it's very sensitive.
Yeah.
And you are right. Yeah, I know you say it. Go ahead.
If you need young minds, to come and sit down on table and discuss solutions. You still go and bring 80-year-old professors, 70-year-old doctors.
Yeah.
All these people, you come and sit them around a table, you call it committee. And the committee will come and sit down and drink tea, $1 million tea.
Yeah. It's happening.
And then you expect it's happening and you expect a change? And brother, the system knew what to do. They just don't want to do it. So I'm not the one going to tell them what to do. I would rather focus on the youth that are being affected. Sometimes your mind even tells you that what you are going through is normal. It will shock you that someone can even see the conversation we are having here and defend the system. That is because that is how they've been designed to understand it. I'm not saying it's bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it is bad. But tell me why you have majority of ladies go to school and then you ask them, what do you want to become? Say, I want to become a nurse. Either a nurse or a teacher. It's by design. This is how our education system has been designed. So automatically they are being pushed into places that the system wants them to go to.
Yeah.
So if you go and study something that the system does not approve of, you end up staying in the house. So if you're asking yourself why you've been in the house 10 years without a job, this is the reason. If you're asking yourself why you've been staying in the house 5 years without a job, this is the reason. Your mind is limited. It has been limited by the classroom. We go to the classroom to be open-minded, but then we come out of the classroom closed-minded. So for the youth that has realized that this is happening and you want a solution for your life, as a matter of fact, start with self-education. Nobody is coming to help you. You need to help yourself.
That's right. That's right.
You need to help yourself. Self-education. These days, there are a lot of tools that people are using to better their lives every day. Sit on your chair and learn. Self-education. Go to Udemy. Go to Allison. Go to Coursera. Go to YouTube. Go to every portal and begin to learn. Learn how the world is going. Learn the things that are being implemented. In these days, you can even build your own personal portfolios. I know that you can use GitHub. You can use GitHub to build your own projects. You build your own projects and then you can use that to compete globally. Build your own projects. Build your own artifacts. Go outside your comfort zone. Where the world has got into now, even people who don't have certificates but have knowledge on how the world is working will get a job before you. It's no more education. It's about what can you do.
Yeah.
It's no more
the exam and pass, having a
certificate. No. It's no more certificate. It's about what can you do? What problem can you solve? Go and start exploring. Explore tools, softwares, things that are being used in the system. What are they using to make life easy? These are things you start looking into. Stop being in your room crying. Stop being in your room beating yourself down that there is nothing coming out of you. There is nothing coming out of you because you are not exposed to the information you need. Today, I'm telling you that get out there, get yourself learning. Learn. I've mentioned where you should start learning from. If it is finance you want to learn, if it's economics, if it's software development, if it is whatever, it is possible to learn from your home. The classroom is not helping. I'm telling you, the African classroom is not helping you to become globally competitive.
That's the salient point right now. That's the most important point you want to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually not you. If you read every African person who has made extraordinary thing, they use the same path.
It's true.
The same path. It wasn't the class.
That's why I said it will give you the foundation, which is good.
Yeah.
But you need to go the extra mile. Pay for courses. If you can pay for courses, pay for them. if you can't pay for courses, they are free portals. I've mentioned them. Go there and begin to explore. Get yourself rolling. Not everyone will be able to get an admission into Harvard. Not everyone will be able to get admission into Cambridge. Not everyone will be able to get admission into wherever you want to go to. But everyone can have access to the internet. Challenge yourself. Beat yourself up. Give
That's
yourself 6 months.
yeah.
Kill yourself with self-education. Delve into books. Delve into things that you want to delve into. And AI has made a lot of things simple. If you don't understand, talk to AI. What is going on here? What do I have to do? What do I have to know? AI is going to direct you. Make sure that you give yourself 6 months. After 6 months, if you've not been able to make your life better after 6 months, don't give up. Make sure that you continue another 6 months. The best of you will only emerge after you have consistently beaten yourself to discipline. That is what I'll tell you.
Mike, I'm of opinion that, you see, Africans have strong intellectual strength. I remember in your book, I mentioned, the first day I want to say that people should check that book, African Curse, because the first day I read that book, it actually communicated so many things to me. You made mention that if the African mind is nurtured properly, it will dominate the world. And as you are talking right now, it just dropped like that. And it resonates with what you are saying, which means that if the people will personally take time to nurture their mind, they should give it time, like they should give themselves time, and they will dominate the world. I want to speak to the people, or we also want to emphasize on our friends and the loved ones, the African people, or the people in the diaspora. One area we are looking at competing in the global world. I want to say that if they find themselves in places like that, they should believe in themselves as well to compete with other people. They should have a mentality of dominating. You said that if an African mind is nurtured properly, it will dominate the world. So an African man should believe in that any company you are working in Europe, in America, in any part of this world, wherever you find yourself, believe in yourself, develop yourself, and have that mentality of dominating, because we have that strength, we have that intellectual strength in us. And that's probably something I want to add to all these self-development we are talking about. We need to also believe in ourselves as Africans.
That's profound. That statement you inferred from my book, if an African mind is nurtured, well, it will dominate the world, is something that came to me some years back, and it's very profound. The reason I'm so passionate about Africa, I'm passionate about African youth, it's because we are exposed to a lot of things, whether positive or negatives. We are exposed to a lot of things, systems, products, natural resources, everything you can think about. So you can imagine that an African mind has been trained to actually turn their environment, turn the resources, turn the products they have, turn these things into finished products. I am telling you that no country in this world will ever compete Africa. That is why I said a nurtured African mind will dominate the world. That was why that statement came to me that time, because we have everything. Africa is the only country that if we decide that we know how to do everything, we will never import from anybody. Yes, Africa is the only continent that we have everything. Is because the education system has avoided or prevented us from understanding the know-how to convert some things. And even if people get to know how to do it, they'll prefer to take it outside because the system still sabotages them. I talk finish.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I had a very simple question, but just before we wrap it up, I'm just highlighting hope. I'm just trying to see that the whole focus is just to let our people know that the education system is failing, and it has failed so many people. But if we will take our own life on ourselves and we decide to work on ourselves, we can compete with the global world. Right now, what I want to say is that, to you, do you still see that Africa has hope? Do we have hope in our educational system? Or you think that we still running into danger if we are still doing all these things? I just want us to say something to just sort of help our people, because we've actually laid the foundation. We've built the foundation with this podcast. And I know that people who will listen to us once they develop themselves, once they work on themselves, like all the other people we've seen, they would have a change in their lives. So what is the future of Africa in this education system as we wrap it up?
Okay, so the future of Africa is the African youth. The future of Africa is the African youth who have decided that he wants to compete globally.
That's
the future of Africa is not in African education. No, it's not in African education system. It is within the African youth who wants to produce global dominance.
Who wants to produce?
That is where the future, global dominance. That is where the future of Africa is. Until we attend to our education system that is producing inferiority complex students. Until we attend to that education system that controls the minds of students not to be innovative. Until we change the education system that will cause students to understand that they are required to be innovative and not to adapt to old systems. If we are able to change these things, our education system will make waves. That is why everything that has been implemented in the world these days, majority of them are not coming from Africa. Africans who have contributed to these things, like the internet, mathematics, you can think of anything that any African has.
And everything,
anything that an African has contributed to, they did it outside the African continent. There's something wrong.
There's something wrong.
We need to cut out that cancer.
That's a powerful conclusion. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So yet another day, another topic. And thank you for staying. And then we want you to subscribe, share this video, and then click the bell button as well so that you can get notification anytime we upload it.